Hello dear World of Warcraft friends, welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today I've got an interesting bit of speculation, because we know that with World of Warcraft The Last Titan we are returning to this continent. We're heading to Northrend, and new adventures await us there. But yes, the last time we were there with Wrath of the Lich King was quite a few years ago. Among other things, we had a time skip in WoW, which means a lot has changed. And within the lore community, there's now speculation that the floating fortress back there, Naxxramas, could become our new capital city. We'll take a look at why in this video. Feel free to write your opinion in the comments, and if you want to support me, leave a like, subscribe. It's free and, yeah, the best way to support me. Let's get started. If you think back, Naxxramas first appeared with World of Warcraft Classic and was the final raid back then. But since it was pretty difficult and not many people got to see it, Blizzard re-released the raid with Wrath of the Lich King and we got it back. With the final boss Kel'Thuzad, who by now, I don't know, has been resurrected more times than, well, I can't think of a funny joke here. But yeah, the raid was cool. It gave us a lot, and since then, Dalaran doesn't float around anymore, but Naxxramas does. Because that's revealed in a book, Exploring Azeroth Northrend. It explains what actually happened in the time since we were there. By now, I think that must be over 10 years in the time skip. And Naxxramas actually still exists. We cleared out the whole place. We killed the Scourge's servants. Naxxramas is still controlled by the Scourge. Yeah, but the Scourge was seriously weakened by the time the Lich King died. Dementsprechend, accordingly, Naxxramas is still floating around here and is, well, I'd say, largely leaderless. There's an interesting line where Magni Bronzebeard, or rather Muradin, says that there's still a strange presence around Naxxramas, as if it's waiting for something or someone, and there's a lot of speculation about that now. For example, whether Kel'Thuzad will return again. Honestly, I have to say, I personally hope not. We've already seen that dude so many times, including again in Shadowlands. He was there in the Sylvanas raid and so on. At some point, enough is enough, and you should let the dead rest. But one speculation that's out there is either Denatrius, who is also expected to show up again in some form, or maybe it means that we attack this citadel, this fortress, and end up taking it over. The reason for this is that the city you see back there, Naxxramas, no longer exists. Back then, in Wrath of the Lich King, Dalaran was teleported to Northrend so that we would have a mobile base of operations in the fight against the Lich King and to have a capital city at all. Dalaran is gone, and that means we definitely need a new capital city in Wrath of the Lich King. There are various speculations about which one that could be. Some say what I would suggest is the Wormrest Temple as a large structure that is friendly towards us. Others, on the other hand, say, hey, we've just cleared out the Ice Crown Citadel, maybe we should just take that one. Others say Ulduar, for example, and still others suggest Naxxramas. The reason for this is said to be that some people assume that in the last Titan, the Titans will return, and Ulduar will end up being hostile to us. Because we know that Ulduar is pretty much one of the most important base of operations for the Titans. Accordingly, it would make sense for the Titans to settle in Ulduar and for it to be hostile toward us. Otherwise, there just aren't many places in the Storm Peaks where we could settle. At least you can't turn Dun Niflheim into a giant city to settle in, or the K3 base camp. Accordingly, people started saying that a mobile operations base would actually be awesome again. Dalaran is destroyed, probably won't return. But what else is still floating around out there? Like in Dragonblight? That's right, Naxxramas. And that's ultimately the point where some people say, hey, in the end, it would be possible that with this presence, this event that's being sensed, that maybe what is meant is that, for example, the Death Knights, meaning the Death Knights who are friendly to us, attack the fortress and ultimately take it for us. And then the whole thing is simply repurposed as a mobile operations base. In the end, it's an interesting point, I have to say. And Naxxramas is also much bigger on the inside than it looks from the outside here. So, from that perspective, you could fit everything you need for a capital city in there. Different districts, etc., and so on. And with that, you would really be mobile. But whether that will actually happen in the end, because that would be the point for me. In the past, Blizzard has always introduced capital cities that were visually very, very impressive, and also gave the player a rather friendly impression, one that fits the expansion. And honestly, I can't imagine that we'll just take over Naxxramas and then do a bit of redecorating here and basically wipe out all these plague pools and everything else in here from the Scourge, basically a complete Tyne Whittler style makeover. Redecorate, and then everything here looks all nice and cozy and is ready for us to use as a base of operations. Well, I really have a hard time imagining that. But I still think the idea behind the whole thing is pretty cool. And so, yeah, in the end, let's just wait and see what happens with it. Honestly, I also find it really, really difficult to say what could even become the next capital, because we actually don't have that many big cities left, or places where you could build something up. So if you have any ideas about that, feel free to write them in the comments. Also, in terms of the regions, a lot of them are actually very, very hostile toward us. That's why, I don't know, something mobile in the Dragonblight around the temple or in the Crystal Song Forest would be pretty awesome. Let's wait and see. As I said, feel free to write what you think in the comments. And with that, thanks for watching. I wish you a wonderful day. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the weekend and everything that comes with it. See you in the next video. Have a great time, and bye.